Question 1. Consider a scenario where OCBC is undertaking a project to streamline its customer onboarding process to reduce turnaround times. The project team proposes automating several manual checks, which they believe will significantly improve efficiency. However, a junior compliance officer raises concerns that some of these automated checks might not capture the nuances required by MAS regulations for identifying high-risk customers. What is the most appropriate approach for OCBC to manage this situation? Option A. Proceed with the automation as planned, assuming the automated checks are sufficient and any minor deviations can be addressed post-implementation. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of the proposed automated checks, comparing them against specific MAS regulatory requirements and OCBC's risk appetite framework, and involve the compliance department in validating the effectiveness and adequacy of the automated controls before proceeding. Option C. Implement the automation but instruct the customer service team to perform additional manual checks on a sample basis to compensate for any perceived gaps in the automated system. Option D. Halt the automation project immediately and revert to the manual process to avoid any potential compliance risks. Correct answer is A. Proceed with the automation as planned, assuming the automated checks are sufficient and any minor deviations can be addressed post-implementation. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain robust compliance and customer trust within OCBC's operational framework. The pressure to optimize processes can sometimes lead to shortcuts that inadvertently compromise regulatory adherence or ethical standards, necessitating careful judgment. The correct approach involves a systematic review and enhancement of existing workflows, ensuring that any changes are thoroughly vetted against relevant MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, regulations, and OCBC's internal policies. This includes conducting impact assessments on compliance, risk management, and customer experience. The justification lies in the MAS's emphasis on operational resilience, robust risk management, and fair dealing with customers. By proactively identifying and mitigating potential compliance gaps during process optimization, OCBC upholds its commitment to regulatory requirements and maintains its reputation. An incorrect approach would be to implement process changes solely based on perceived efficiency gains, without a comprehensive review of their impact on compliance. This could lead to regulatory breaches, such as failing to meet data privacy requirements under the Personal Data Protection Act, PDPA, or contravening anti-money laundering, AML, and counter-terrorist financing, CTF, regulations. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize cost reduction over the integrity of customer onboarding processes, potentially leading to inadequate Know Your Customer (KIC) checks, which is a direct violation of MAS guidelines and exposes the bank to significant financial and reputational risks. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that integrates compliance and risk assessment into the very fabric of process optimization. This involves a multi-stakeholder approach, engaging compliance officers, risk managers, and business units from the outset. Before any changes are implemented, a thorough due diligence process should be conducted, including scenario planning for potential regulatory noncompliance and developing contingency plans. The focus should always be on achieving efficiency, without compromising the bank's regulatory obligations and ethical responsibilities. Question 2. System analysis indicates that OCBC's customer onboarding process is experiencing delays, impacting customer satisfaction and operational efficiency. To address this, a proposal has been put forth to streamline the process by introducing enhanced digital verification methods and automated data validation, while ensuring strict adherence to all relevant regulatory frameworks governing financial institutions in Singapore. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the objective of optimizing the onboarding process while maintaining regulatory compliance? Option A. Revert to a fully manual paper-based verification process for all customer onboarding, regardless of risk level, to ensure thoroughness. Option B. Implement a comprehensive digital onboarding solution that integrates advanced identity verification technologies and automated checks against reliable data sources, ensuring all steps comply with MAS regulations for KYC and AML. Option C. Shift to a system where customers self-declare all information with minimal independent verification to expedite the onboarding timeline. Option D. Reduce the number of data fields collected during onboarding to speed up the process, without a detailed assessment of the impact on regulatory data requirements. The correct answer is B. Implement a comprehensive digital onboarding solution that integrates advanced identity verification technologies and automated checks against reliable data sources, ensuring all steps comply with MAS regulations for KYC and AML. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with strict adherence to regulatory requirements, specifically those governing customer onboarding and data privacy within OCBC's operational jurisdiction. The pressure to streamline processes can inadvertently lead to shortcuts that compromise compliance, potentially resulting in significant penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement process improvements that are both effective and compliant. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing customer onboarding procedures to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, followed by the development of revised workflows that integrate enhanced digital verification methods and automated data validation checks. This approach is right because it directly addresses the need for efficiency, while ensuring that all steps align with OCBC's regulatory obligations, such as those mandated by the Monetary Authority of Singapore (MAS) for Know Your Customer (KIC) and anti-money laundering (AML) regulations. These regulations emphasize robust customer due diligence and data protection, which are best achieved through well-designed, technology-enabled processes that minimize manual intervention and reduce the risk of errors or non-compliance. Implementing a system that relies solely on self-declaration without independent verification is an incorrect approach. This fails to meet the stringent KYC/AML requirements that mandate verification of customer identity and information through reliable, independent sources. Such a failure could lead to onboarding of illicit actors, contravening MAS regulations, and exposing OCBC to significant financial crime risks. Adopting a purely manual, paper-based process for all verification steps, even for low-risk customers, is also an incorrect approach. While it might appear compliant on the surface, it is inefficient and prone to human error, increasing operational costs and potentially delaying customer onboarding unnecessarily. This lack of technological integration hinders the bank's ability to scale operations effectively and may not meet the spirit of regulatory expectations for efficient yet secure processes. Focusing solely on reducing the number of data fields collected without assessing the impact on regulatory compliance is another incorrect approach. This prioritizes speed over essential due diligence, potentially omitting critical information required for KYC/AML purposes. Such an omission would directly violate MAS guidelines, increasing the risk of regulatory breaches and undermining the integrity of the onboarding process. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a risk-based approach. First, understand the specific regulatory requirements applicable to OCBC in its operating jurisdiction. Second, analyze the current process to identify inefficiencies and compliance gaps. Third, brainstorm potential solutions, evaluating each against both efficiency gains and regulatory compliance. Fourth, prioritize solutions that offer a balance of both, ensuring that any proposed changes are thoroughly vetted for compliance before implementation. Finally, establish ongoing monitoring and review mechanisms to ensure sustained compliance and identify further optimization opportunities. Question 3. The investigation demonstrates that OCBC's operational efficiency in its customer onboarding process has been identified as an area for significant improvement. Several potential strategies have been proposed to streamline this process, but it is crucial to select an approach that upholds the bank's commitment to regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of responsible process optimization within the Singaporean regulatory framework for financial institutions? Option A. Outsource a significant portion of the onboarding process to a third-party vendor without conducting a comprehensive due diligence review of their compliance and data handling capabilities, relying solely on their stated assurances of regulatory adherence. Option B. Introduce a simplified, paper-based application form that bypasses the need for extensive digital verification, prioritizing ease of use for customers over strict adherence to digital data security protocols. Option C. Expedite the onboarding process by reducing the number of mandatory checks and documentation requirements, focusing primarily on speed to market and customer acquisition targets. Option D. Implement a new digital onboarding platform that automates identity verification and data collection, ensuring all new functionalities are pre-vetted by the compliance and legal departments for adherence to the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, guidelines and relevant banking acts. The correct answer is D. Implement a new digital onboarding platform that automates identity verification and data collection, ensuring all new functionalities are pre-vetted by the compliance and legal departments for adherence to the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, guidelines and relevant banking acts. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the imperative to improve operational efficiency with the strict regulatory obligations governing financial institutions like OCBC. The pressure to optimize processes can sometimes lead to shortcuts or overlooking critical compliance steps, which can have severe consequences, including regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any process optimization initiative is conducted within the established legal and ethical boundaries. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing and implementing changes that are compliant with all relevant regulations. This approach is right because it prioritizes adherence to the regulatory framework, which is paramount for OCBC. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of sound risk management and operational resilience expected by financial regulators in Singapore. By ensuring that all proposed changes are vetted against regulatory requirements and that staff are adequately trained on new procedures, the bank upholds its commitment to compliance and avoids potential breaches. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory implications is professionally unacceptable. This would likely lead to the omission of essential compliance checks or controls, potentially violating regulations such as those related to data privacy, anti-money laundering, or customer due diligence. An approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thoroughness and risk assessment is also professionally unacceptable. Rushing through process changes without adequate testing or validation can introduce new operational risks or inadvertently create non-compliance issues, which regulators would view as a failure in due diligence. An approach that bypasses established internal control frameworks and approval processes, even with the intention of accelerating optimization, is professionally unacceptable. Such actions undermine the bank's governance structure and can lead to unauthorized or non-compliant activities, exposing OCBC to significant risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals at OCBC should adopt a decision-making framework that integrates compliance and risk management into every stage of process optimization. This involves 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape relevant to the proposed changes. 2. Conducting a thorough impact assessment, including regulatory compliance. 3. Engaging relevant compliance and risk departments early in the process. 4. Implementing changes with robust testing and validation. 5. Providing comprehensive training to affected staff. 6. Establishing clear monitoring and review mechanisms to ensure ongoing compliance. This structured approach ensures that efficiency gains are achieved responsibly and sustainably. Question 4. The analysis reveals that OCBC is exploring ways to optimize its customer onboarding process to reduce turnaround times and enhance digital capabilities. One proposed approach involves a complete overhaul of the existing system, replacing it with a new, fully integrated digital platform rolled out across all branches simultaneously, with minimal pre-launch testing to expedite the transition. Option A. Proceed with the full implementation of the new digital onboarding platform without involving the compliance and legal departments in the final review stages to accelerate the launch. Option B. Implement the new digital onboarding platform across all branches simultaneously with minimal pre-launch testing to achieve rapid efficiency gains. Option C. Conduct a phased rollout of the new digital onboarding platform, starting with a pilot program in select branches, followed by iterative improvements based on feedback and performance data before a full-scale deployment. Option D. Focus solely on reducing the number of manual steps in the current onboarding process without introducing new technology, prioritizing immediate cost savings. Correct answer is B. Implement the new digital onboarding platform across all branches simultaneously with minimal pre-launch testing to achieve rapid efficiency gains. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because Bank, as a regulated financial institution, must balance operational efficiency with strict adherence to the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, regulations, particularly concerning customer onboarding and data integrity. The pressure to streamline processes must not compromise the bank's legal and ethical obligations to prevent financial crime and ensure accurate customer records. Careful judgment is required to identify process improvements that are both effective and compliant. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of the new digital onboarding system, starting with a pilot program in a controlled environment. This allows Bank to identify and rectify any potential compliance gaps or operational issues before a full-scale rollout. This approach is justified by MAS guidelines on technology risk management and operational resilience, which emphasize robust testing and risk mitigation strategies for new systems. It also aligns with the principle of fit and proper requirements for personnel and systems, ensuring that new technologies do not introduce undue risks. An approach that prioritizes immediate full-scale deployment without adequate testing risks significant regulatory breaches. This could lead to non-compliance with MAS directives on customer due diligence, CDD, and anti-money laundering, AML controls, potentially resulting in inaccurate customer data, increased susceptibility to financial crime, and subsequent penalties. Another incorrect approach would be to implement changes solely based on cost reduction, without a thorough assessment of their impact on compliance and customer experience. This overlooks the MAS's emphasis on maintaining high standards of customer protection and operational integrity, which are paramount for maintaining public trust and the bank's reputation. Finally, an approach that bypasses internal compliance and legal review for the sake of speed would be a critical ethical and regulatory failure. This demonstrates a disregard for the established governance framework designed to protect Bank and its customers from legal and financial risks. Professionals at Bank should employ a decision-making framework that integrates risk assessment, regulatory impact analysis, and stakeholder consultation. This involves 1. Identifying the objective e.g. process optimization. 2. Evaluating potential solutions against regulatory requirements, MAS guidelines, and ethical principles. 3. Conducting thorough risk assessments for each proposed solution. 4. Piloting and testing solutions in a controlled manner. 5. Obtaining necessary approvals from compliance, legal, and senior management. 6. Implementing changes in a phased and monitored manner. Question 5. Compliance review shows that Bank's current candidate onboarding process has several bottlenecks, leading to extended hiring timelines. To address this, which of the following process optimization strategies would best align with the Monetary Authority of Singapore's, MAS, regulatory expectations for financial institutions? Option A. Outsourcing the entire onboarding process, including background checks and reference verification, to a third-party vendor without establishing specific contractual clauses for MAS compliance oversight. Option B. Implementing a new applicant tracking system that automates the initial screening and scheduling of interviews, while ensuring the system is configured to flag candidates with potential compliance red flags based on predefined criteria. Option C. Reducing the number of mandatory background checks for all candidates to expedite the offer stage, assuming most candidates are low risk. Option D. Focusing solely on reducing the time taken for each individual step in the hiring process, such as shortening interview durations and accelerating reference checks, without a comprehensive review of the compliance implications of these changes. The correct answer is B. Implementing a new applicant tracking system that automates the initial screening and scheduling of interviews, while ensuring the system is configured to flag candidates with potential compliance red flags based on predefined criteria. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for operational efficiency with the imperative to adhere to stringent regulatory requirements. The Bank hiring assessment test, by its nature, evaluates an individual's understanding of compliance and ethical conduct within the banking sector. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective process optimization strategy that not only improves workflow, but also demonstrably strengthens adherence to the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, regulations, which govern financial institutions in Singapore. A superficial optimization that overlooks compliance risks could lead to significant penalties and reputational damage for OCBC Bank. The correct approach involves a thorough review and redesign of the hiring process, specifically focusing on integrating compliance checks and controls at critical junctures. This means not just speeding up existing steps, but fundamentally reevaluating how each stage of the hiring process contributes to regulatory compliance, such as ensuring proper due diligence on candidates and maintaining accurate records as mandated by MAS guidelines on outsourcing and record-keeping. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the core of the compliance review's findings by embedding regulatory adherence into the operational fabric, thereby mitigating risks proactively. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on reducing the time taken for each hiring stage without a corresponding assessment of compliance implications. For instance, streamlining background checks by reducing the depth of verification would be a regulatory failure, as MAS expects robust due diligence to prevent financial crime and ensure suitability of personnel. Another incorrect approach would be to automate the process without ensuring the automated systems are designed to capture and retain all necessary compliance-related data in a manner that meets MAS's record-keeping requirements. This could lead to data integrity issues and non-compliance with audit trail mandates. A third incorrect approach might involve delegating hiring tasks to external vendors without establishing clear contractual obligations and oversight mechanisms to ensure the vendors themselves comply with relevant MAS regulations, particularly concerning data privacy and security. Professionals should approach such situations by adopting a risk-based methodology. This involves first identifying all relevant regulatory obligations pertaining to the process under review. Subsequently, each step of the process should be analyzed for its potential to create compliance gaps or risks. Optimization efforts should then be prioritized based on their ability to either eliminate these risks or significantly reduce their likelihood and impact, while simultaneously enhancing efficiency. Continuous monitoring and periodic reassessment of the optimized process against evolving regulatory landscapes are also crucial components of professional decision-making. Question 6. To address the challenge of improving operational efficiency within OCBC Bank's customer onboarding process, which of the following approaches best aligns with the Monetary Authority of Singapore (MAS) regulatory framework and ethical banking principles? Option A. Reducing the number of required documentation for new customers to speed up the process, even if it means accepting less comprehensive identity verification. Option B. Outsourcing the entire customer onboarding function to a third-party vendor without conducting extensive due diligence on their compliance and security protocols. Option C. Conducting a thorough review of the existing onboarding workflow to identify and eliminate redundant steps, enhance data validation checks, and ensure compliance with MAS CDD and AML requirements while maintaining necessary human oversight. Option D. Implementing a fully automated digital onboarding system that bypasses manual verification steps to expedite customer sign-ups. The correct answer is D. Implementing a fully automated digital onboarding system that bypasses manual verification steps to expedite customer sign-ups. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for OCBC Bank employees by requiring them to balance efficiency gains with the imperative of maintaining robust internal controls and compliance with the Monetary Authority of Singapore (MAS) regulations. The pressure to streamline processes must not lead to shortcuts that could compromise data integrity, customer protection, or regulatory adherence. Careful judgment is required to identify process improvements that are both effective and compliant. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing workflows, identifying bottlenecks, and proposing changes that enhance efficiency without introducing new risks or violating MAS guidelines. This includes ensuring that any automation or redesign of processes maintains adequate segregation of duties, data security, and audit trails, as mandated by MAS notices and guidelines on technology risk management and outsourcing. The focus is on achieving operational excellence through compliant and controlled enhancements. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over control would fail to adequately assess the impact of process changes on risk management. For instance, implementing a new digital onboarding system without sufficient validation checks could violate MAS requirements for customer due diligence, CDD, and anti-money laundering (AML) controls, leading to potential regulatory breaches and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach might involve outsourcing critical functions without a thorough vendor due diligence process and clear contractual agreements that align with MAS outsourcing guidelines, thereby exposing Bank to operational and compliance risks. A third incorrect approach could be to implement changes without proper testing and validation, risking system failures or unintended consequences that could impact customer service and regulatory reporting accuracy. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape, MAS guidelines. This should be followed by a comprehensive risk assessment of any proposed process change, considering potential impacts on compliance, data security, customer experience, and operational resilience. Solutions should be designed with built-in controls and tested rigorously before implementation. Continuous monitoring and review are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 7. The review process indicates that Bank's customer onboarding process is experiencing significant delays, leading to a suboptimal customer experience and increased operational costs. To address this, a proposal has been put forth to streamline the process. Which of the following approaches best aligns with Bank's regulatory obligations under the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, and promotes sustainable operational efficiency? Option A. Introduce new software solutions for onboarding without conducting a comprehensive risk assessment or providing adequate training to the operations team on its functionalities and compliance implications. Option B. Focus on reducing the number of staff involved in the onboarding process to immediately cut operational expenses, assuming that existing procedures can be managed with fewer resources. Option C. Implement a digital transformation strategy that automates data capture and verification, integrates robust Know Your Customer (KIC) and anti-money laundering (AML) checks within the automated workflow, and provides continuous staff training on the new digital tools and compliance requirements. Option D. Expedite the onboarding by allowing certain customer verification steps to be bypassed, particularly for customers deemed low risk, to reduce processing times. Correct answer is C. Implement a digital transformation strategy that automates data capture and verification, integrates robust Know Your Customer (KIC) and anti-money laundering (AML) checks within the automated workflow, and provides continuous staff training on the new digital tools and compliance requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because Bank, as a regulated financial institution, must balance the need for efficient operational processes with its stringent obligations under the Monetary Authority of Singapore (MAS) regulations. The challenge lies in identifying process improvements that enhance efficiency without compromising compliance, customer data privacy, or the integrity of financial reporting, all of which are heavily scrutinized by MAS. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any optimization does not inadvertently create new risks or violate existing regulatory mandates. The correct approach involves a systematic review and redesign of the customer onboarding process, focusing on digital transformation and automation while embedding robust Know Your Customer (KIC) and anti-money laundering (AML) checks. This approach is professionally sound because it directly addresses the identified inefficiencies by leveraging technology to streamline workflows. Crucially, it aligns with MAS guidelines, such as those outlined in the MAS Notice 626 on prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing, which encourage the adoption of technology for enhanced compliance. By integrating compliance checks into the automated workflow, Bank can achieve both speed and accuracy, thereby reducing operational risk and ensuring adherence to regulatory requirements for customer due diligence. This proactive stance demonstrates a commitment to both operational excellence and regulatory integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing headcount to cut costs without a corresponding redesign of the process would be professionally unacceptable. This would likely lead to increased manual intervention, higher error rates, and potential breaches of compliance procedures, exposing Bank to regulatory penalties and reputational damage. It fails to address the root causes of inefficiency and prioritizes short-term cost savings over long-term operational and regulatory health. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing certain verification steps to speed up onboarding would be a direct violation of MAS Notice 626 and other relevant regulations. This would create significant compliance risks, including potential involvement in financial crimes, and would be met with severe regulatory sanctions. It demonstrates a disregard for fundamental compliance obligations and a failure to understand the critical importance of robust KYC/AML procedures. Finally, an approach that implements new technology without adequate staff training or a thorough risk assessment would be professionally unsound. While technology can be a powerful tool for optimization, its implementation requires careful planning, staff upskilling, and a comprehensive understanding of potential new risks. Without these, the technology may not be used effectively, or it could introduce unforeseen vulnerabilities, leading to operational failures and potential regulatory noncompliance. Professionals at OCBC should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and risk management as foundational elements. Any proposed process optimization should be evaluated against the MAS regulatory framework, considering its impact on KYC/AML, data privacy, and financial reporting integrity. A multidisciplinary team, including compliance officers, IT specialists, and operational managers, should be involved in assessing proposed changes. The framework should include a thorough risk assessment, a pilot testing phase, and continuous monitoring to ensure that the optimized process remains compliant and efficient. Question 8. What factors determine the most effective and compliant approach to process optimization within OCBC's operational framework, considering the regulatory landscape? Option A. Relying on the subjective feedback of senior management regarding perceived inefficiencies and implementing changes based on their recommendations. Option B. Focusing on immediate cost savings by streamlining existing manual processes through staff reassignments without significant technological investment. Option C. Conducting a comprehensive analysis of existing workflows, identifying bottlenecks through data, and implementing technology-driven solutions validated against regulatory requirements and tested for customer impact and risk. Option D. Prioritizing the adoption of the latest available technology solutions to enhance operational speed and efficiency with post-implementation compliance checks. The correct answer is D. Prioritizing the adoption of the latest available technology solutions to enhance operational speed and efficiency with post-implementation compliance checks. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an employee at OCBC by requiring them to identify the most effective approach to process optimization within a specific regulatory context. The challenge lies in balancing efficiency gains with adherence to the strict regulatory framework governing financial institutions in Singapore, which OCBC operates within. Misinterpreting or neglecting these regulations can lead to significant compliance breaches, reputational damage, and financial penalties. Therefore, careful judgment is required to select an optimization strategy that is both effective and compliant. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of existing operational workflows and identifying bottlenecks through data analysis, followed by the implementation of technology-driven solutions that are validated against regulatory requirements and tested for impact on customer experience and risk management. This approach is correct because it prioritizes a systematic, evidence-based method for improvement. Specifically, it aligns with the Monetary Authority of Singapore's MAS guidelines on operational risk management and technology risk management, which emphasize robust internal controls, risk assessments, and the responsible adoption of new technologies. By focusing on data-driven insights and regulatory validation, this method ensures that process optimization enhances efficiency without compromising the bank's integrity or its obligations to customers and regulators. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory implications fails because it overlooks the potential for noncompliance. For instance, implementing a new system that automates customer onboarding without ensuring it meets MAS Know Your Customer (KIC) and anti-money laundering (AML) requirements would be a significant regulatory failure. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough testing and validation risks introducing errors or security vulnerabilities. This could lead to operational disruptions or data breaches, which are serious breaches of MAS regulations concerning operational resilience and data protection. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals, rather than objective data and regulatory consultation, is flawed because it lacks the rigor necessary for effective and compliant process improvement in a regulated environment. Such an approach is unlikely to identify true inefficiencies or ensure that proposed changes meet the stringent standards expected of a financial institution like OCBC. Professionals at OCBC should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the business objective for process optimization. This should be followed by a comprehensive review of current processes, identifying key performance indicators, KPI, and potential areas for improvement. Crucially, any proposed optimization must be rigorously assessed against the relevant MAS regulations and internal compliance policies. This involves consulting with legal and compliance departments early in the process. The chosen solution should then be piloted, with clear metrics for success and failure, and a robust change management plan. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to ensure ongoing effectiveness and compliance. Question 9. The assessment process reveals that the time taken to onboard new hires at OCBC is significantly longer than industry benchmarks, impacting departmental productivity. To address this, a proposal is made to streamline the candidate evaluation stages by reducing the number of required interviews and automating the final decision-making process based on initial screening scores. Option A. Prioritize candidate feedback and engagement by making the assessment process less rigorous and more conversational, with the aim of improving candidate satisfaction scores, even if it means less in-depth evaluation of core competencies. Option B. Immediately reduce the number of mandatory interviews for all roles and delegate the final hiring decision to an automated system that solely relies on the scores from the initial online assessments. Option C. Implement a phased approach to process optimization, starting with a review of existing assessment criteria and interview structures to identify areas for efficiency gains, while ensuring that all critical evaluation points and compliance checks remain intact. Option D. Focus on accelerating the administrative aspects of the hiring process, such as background checks and document verification, by accepting self-declarations from candidates without further independent verification to expedite onboarding. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased approach to process optimization, starting with a review of existing assessment criteria and interview structures to identify areas for efficiency gains, while ensuring that all critical evaluation points and compliance checks remain intact. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficiency in the hiring process with the imperative to adhere to OCBC's internal policies and relevant financial regulations. The pressure to expedite hiring can lead to shortcuts that compromise the integrity of the assessment and potentially expose the bank to risks, such as hiring unsuitable candidates or violating compliance standards. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process optimization does not undermine the thoroughness and fairness of the assessment. The correct approach involves systematically identifying bottlenecks and implementing targeted improvements that enhance efficiency without compromising the quality or compliance of the assessment. This might include leveraging technology for initial screening, standardizing interview questions, or improving feedback loops between assessors. This approach is professionally sound because it aligns with the principles of good governance and operational excellence, ensuring that OCBC maintains high standards in its recruitment practices while remaining compliant with regulatory expectations for financial institutions. It prioritizes a robust and fair assessment process, which is ethically imperative and crucial for building a competent and trustworthy workforce. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the time taken for each assessment stage, without considering the impact on the depth of evaluation, is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to superficial candidate assessments, increasing the risk of hiring individuals who lack the necessary skills, experience, or ethical grounding, which could have significant implications for OCBC's reputation and operational integrity. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing certain mandatory checks or documentation requirements to speed up the process is a direct violation of internal policies and potentially financial regulations governing recruitment and due diligence. Such actions undermine the audit trail and can lead to regulatory penalties and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes candidate experience over the rigor of the assessment by making the process overly lenient or less challenging is also professionally unsound. While candidate experience is important, the primary objective of the hiring assessment is to identify the most suitable candidates who meet OCBC's stringent requirements. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured review of the current assessment process to identify specific areas for improvement. This should be followed by a risk assessment of any proposed changes, considering their impact on assessment quality, compliance, and candidate experience. Solutions should be developed collaboratively with relevant stakeholders, including HR, compliance, and business units, and any implemented changes should be monitored for effectiveness and adherence to policies and regulations. Question 10. Compliance review shows that OCBC's customer onboarding process has become increasingly time-consuming, impacting customer satisfaction scores. A proposal has been put forward to streamline data verification by reducing the number of independent checks performed on certain customer documents, with the aim of significantly speeding up the onboarding timeline. What is the most appropriate approach for OCBC to consider in response to this situation? Option A. Immediately approve the proposed reduction in data verification checks to address customer dissatisfaction, assuming that the existing regulatory framework is sufficiently robust to catch any potential issues. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the existing customer onboarding process to identify bottlenecks, and then design and implement optimized workflows that maintain or enhance regulatory compliance and data integrity, potentially involving technology solutions. Option C. Implement the proposed streamlining of data verification to improve onboarding speed, with a commitment to conduct a post-implementation review of any compliance issues that arise. Option D. Delegate the decision-making for streamlining data verification to the frontline operations team, empowering them to make adjustments based on their daily experience to improve efficiency. The correct answer is C. Implement the proposed streamlining of data verification to improve onboarding speed, with a commitment to conduct a post-implementation review of any compliance issues that arise. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the pursuit of operational efficiency with the stringent regulatory obligations of OCBC. The core tension lies in implementing process improvements that could inadvertently lead to non-compliance or ethical breaches if not carefully managed. The need for deep analysis stems from the potential for subtle deviations from established procedures to have significant consequences, impacting customer trust, regulatory standing, and the bank's reputation. The correct approach involves a proactive and integrated strategy that embeds compliance and ethical considerations into the process optimization lifecycle from its inception. This means not just identifying areas for improvement, but also rigorously assessing the regulatory implications of any proposed changes. This approach is professionally sound because it aligns with the principles of responsible banking and the overarching mandate of financial institutions to operate within legal and ethical boundaries. Specifically, it adheres to the spirit and letter of regulations that require robust risk management and a culture of compliance, ensuring that efficiency gains do not come at the expense of customer protection or market integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a thorough regulatory impact assessment would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the bank's legal obligations, potentially leading to breaches of regulations designed to safeguard customers and the financial system. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over due diligence in understanding the nuances of customer data handling would violate data privacy laws and ethical standards, risking severe penalties and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach that overlooks the need for adequate staff training on new, optimized processes would create a compliance gap, as employees might unknowingly deviate from regulatory requirements due to a lack of understanding, thereby undermining the bank's compliance framework. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the regulatory landscape relevant to OCBC. This involves identifying all applicable laws, guidelines, and internal policies. When considering process optimization, the next step is to conduct a thorough risk assessment, specifically evaluating how proposed changes might impact compliance. This includes scenario planning for potential negative outcomes and developing mitigation strategies. The decision to proceed with any optimization should be contingent on a clear demonstration that regulatory requirements will be met or enhanced, and that ethical standards will be upheld. Continuous monitoring and review are also crucial to ensure ongoing compliance. Question 11. Compliance review shows that OCBC's current customer data onboarding process is experiencing significant delays, impacting client satisfaction and operational efficiency. While the team is proposing to accelerate data collection by reducing the number of verification steps and implementing a more direct data sharing mechanism with third-party service providers, a separate internal audit has flagged potential risks related to customer data privacy and security under the prevailing regulatory framework. Considering these findings, which of the following approaches best balances the need for process optimization with OCBC's regulatory obligations? Option A. Expedite the onboarding process by removing several verification steps and allowing direct, unencrypted data sharing with trusted third-party service providers to reduce turnaround times. Option B. Focus solely on streamlining the data collection forms and reducing the number of required fields, assuming that existing security measures are sufficient for the accelerated process. Option C. Implement a revised onboarding process that incorporates automated data validation checks and enhanced encryption protocols for data in transit and at rest, while ensuring all data sharing with third parties is strictly anonymized and governed by robust data processing agreements. Option D. Delegate the entire process optimization to the operations team, trusting their judgment to identify the most efficient methods without further compliance oversight. The correct answer is C. Implement a revised onboarding process that incorporates automated data validation checks and enhanced encryption protocols for data in transit and at rest, while ensuring all data sharing with third parties is strictly anonymized and governed by robust data processing agreements. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for operational efficiency with the imperative to adhere to stringent regulatory requirements, specifically those governing data handling and customer privacy within OCBC. The pressure to optimize processes can sometimes lead to shortcuts that inadvertently compromise compliance, creating a significant risk of regulatory breaches, financial penalties, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement process improvements that are not only efficient but also fully compliant. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing data handling procedures to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the development and implementation of revised processes that incorporate robust data anonymization techniques and enhanced access controls. This approach is professionally sound because it directly addresses the identified compliance gaps by embedding privacy-preserving measures into the operational workflow. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of data protection and privacy mandated by relevant financial regulations, which require banks to protect customer data and ensure its responsible handling throughout its lifecycle. By proactively anonymizing data and strengthening access controls, OCBC mitigates the risk of unauthorized access or disclosure, thereby upholding its regulatory obligations and customer trust. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed and cost reduction without considering data privacy implications would be professionally unacceptable. This would likely involve streamlining data collection or sharing processes in a way that bypasses necessary anonymization steps or weakens existing access controls. Such an approach would directly violate regulatory mandates that require the protection of sensitive customer information, potentially leading to data breaches and significant penalties. Another incorrect approach might be to implement new technologies without a comprehensive understanding of their impact on data privacy and compliance. While technology can be a powerful tool for process optimization, its adoption must be preceded by a thorough risk assessment to ensure it does not introduce new vulnerabilities or contravene existing regulations. Failure to conduct such an assessment could result in unintended noncompliance. A third incorrect approach could be to delegate the entire process optimization task to a team without adequate compliance expertise. While operational teams may have deep insights into process inefficiencies, they may lack the specialized knowledge to identify and address all regulatory nuances. This could lead to the adoption of solutions that appear efficient on the surface but harbor hidden compliance risks. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multidisciplinary approach. First, clearly define the objectives, ensuring that both efficiency gains and regulatory compliance are prioritized. Second, conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that specifically considers data privacy and security implications. Third, Engage relevant stakeholders, including compliance officers, legal counsel, and IT security experts, throughout the optimization process. Fourth, implement changes incrementally, with rigorous testing and validation at each stage to ensure ongoing compliance. Finally, establish ongoing monitoring and review mechanisms to adapt to evolving regulatory landscapes and technological advancements. Question 12. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in customer query resolution times at OCBC's digital banking support channels. To address this, a new initiative is proposed to streamline the customer service workflow. Which of the following approaches best aligns with OCBC's commitment to operational excellence and regulatory compliance under the Monetary Authority of Singapore (MAS) guidelines? Option A. Reduce the number of customer service representatives to lower operational costs, assuming that the increased volume of queries will be managed by the remaining staff through faster, albeit less thorough, responses. Option B. Introduce a mandatory 24-hour waiting period for all non-urgent customer inquiries to allow the existing team to catch up on the backlog, without exploring alternative staffing or technology solutions. Option C. Implement a new automated chatbot system that handles all initial customer inquiries, with human agents only intervening for complex issues, without a comprehensive review of existing customer journey pain points. Option D. Conduct a thorough analysis of the current customer service workflow, identifying specific bottlenecks and areas of customer friction, and then design and implement targeted process improvements that enhance efficiency while maintaining or improving customer experience and ensuring adherence to MAS regulations. The correct answer is C. Implement a new automated chatbot system that handles all initial customer inquiries, with human agents only intervening for complex issues, without a comprehensive review of existing customer journey pain points. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because OCBC, as a regulated financial institution, must balance the pursuit of operational efficiency with its obligations to customers and regulatory compliance. The pressure to improve performance metrics can lead to shortcuts or decisions that, while seemingly beneficial in the short term, could expose the bank to significant risks, including reputational damage, regulatory sanctions, and customer dissatisfaction. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process optimization efforts are conducted ethically and within the bounds of applicable regulations. The correct approach involves a systematic and customer-centric review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then implementing improvements that enhance both efficiency and customer experience, while ensuring full compliance with the Monetary Authority of Singapore (MAS) regulations. This approach prioritizes understanding the root causes of performance issues and developing solutions that are sustainable and aligned with the bank's ethical standards and regulatory duties. Specifically, it aligns with MAS guidelines on operational risk management and customer protection, which emphasize robust internal controls and fair treatment of customers. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction, without considering the impact on service quality or regulatory adherence, would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to reduced customer satisfaction, increased error rates, and potential breaches of MAS regulations concerning service standards and data privacy. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing new technology without adequate testing or staff training risks operational failures and non-compliance with MAS requirements for system resilience and risk mitigation. Furthermore, an approach that bypasses established internal control frameworks to expedite changes, even with good intentions, undermines the bank's governance structure and could lead to unintended consequences and regulatory scrutiny. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the current state, including performance data and customer feedback. This should be followed by an assessment of potential solutions, evaluating them not only for efficiency gains, but also for their impact on customer experience, risk exposure, and regulatory compliance. Engaging relevant stakeholders, including compliance and risk management teams, is crucial throughout the process to ensure that all decisions are well-informed and aligned with OCBC's strategic objectives and regulatory obligations. Question 13. Market research demonstrates that OCBC's internal loan application processing times are longer than industry averages. To improve efficiency and customer satisfaction, a team proposes streamlining the data verification stage by reducing the number of independent checks performed on applicant-submitted documents. This proposal aims to significantly cut down processing time. Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the current data verification process, identifying specific regulatory requirements for document verification under Singapore law and MAS guidelines, and then propose optimizations that strictly adhere to these requirements. Option B. Implement the proposed streamlining by reducing independent checks, focusing on the time savings and potential for increased loan volume. Option C. Immediately approve the proposal to reduce independent checks, assuming that the risk of fraud or error is minimal given the bank's existing reputation. Option D. Delegate the decision on reducing independent checks to the frontline staff who handle applications daily, as they have the most practical understanding of the process. The correct answer is B. Implement the proposed streamlining by reducing independent checks, focusing on the time savings and potential for increased loan volume. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an employee at OCBC Bank due to the inherent tension between optimizing internal processes for efficiency and adhering to strict regulatory requirements designed to protect customers and maintain market integrity. The need for careful judgment arises from balancing these competing demands, ensuring that efficiency gains do not inadvertently lead to compliance breaches or ethical lapses. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing solutions that are vetted against the relevant regulatory framework, specifically the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, guidelines and relevant banking acts applicable to OCBC Bank's operations in Singapore. This approach prioritizes compliance and customer protection while seeking operational improvements. It aligns with the MAS's emphasis on robust internal controls, risk management, and fair dealing with customers. By ensuring that any process optimization is compliant, it upholds OCBC Bank's reputation and avoids potential penalties. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory implications would be professionally unacceptable. For instance, automating customer onboarding without ensuring that the automated system fully captures all necessary Know Your Customer (KIC) information as mandated by MAS notices would violate regulatory requirements and expose the bank to significant risks. Similarly, streamlining complaint handling by reducing the number of touchpoints without ensuring that customer issues are still adequately addressed and resolved within regulatory timelines would be a failure of fair dealing and customer protection principles. Another incorrect approach might involve implementing a new digital service without conducting a thorough risk assessment and obtaining necessary approvals, potentially contravening MAS guidelines on technology risk management and outsourcing. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the objective, process optimization. This should be immediately followed by a comprehensive review of the existing regulatory landscape relevant to the process. Any proposed changes must then be assessed for their impact on compliance, risk, and customer outcomes. Seeking input from compliance and legal departments early in the process is crucial. If a proposed optimization creates a potential conflict with regulations, the priority must always be to find a compliant solution, even if it means a less aggressive optimization or a slower implementation. Question 14. Compliance review shows that OCBC Bank is exploring significant process optimization within its customer onboarding and transaction monitoring departments to enhance efficiency and reduce operational costs. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure that these optimization efforts do not inadvertently compromise the bank's adherence to Singapore's anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing regulations, as stipulated by the Monetary Authority of Singapore (MAS)? Option A. Prioritize cost reduction targets above all else, making only minor adjustments to compliance procedures if absolutely necessary to avoid significant delays. Option B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of the proposed optimization on all existing compliance controls, including customer due diligence, transaction monitoring, and suspicious transaction reporting, and seek explicit approval from the compliance and risk management departments before implementation. Option C. Implement the proposed process changes immediately to realize efficiency gains, with a plan to address any compliance issues that may arise retrospectively. Option D. Delegate the entire optimization project to the IT department, trusting their technical expertise to streamline processes without direct involvement from compliance or business units. The correct answer is C. Implement the proposed process changes immediately to realize efficiency gains, with a plan to address any compliance issues that may arise retrospectively. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because OCBC, like any financial institution, operates under strict regulatory scrutiny in Singapore. The challenge lies in balancing the need for operational efficiency through process optimization with the imperative to maintain robust compliance with the Monetary Authority of Singapore MAS regulations, particularly concerning anti-money laundering (AML) and counter-terrorist financing (CTF) controls. A hasty or poorly considered optimization could inadvertently weaken these critical controls, leading to significant reputational damage, regulatory penalties, and loss of customer trust. Careful judgment is required to ensure that efficiency gains do not compromise the integrity of compliance frameworks. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of process optimization, prioritizing a thorough impact assessment on existing compliance controls and seeking explicit approval from the relevant compliance and risk management departments before proceeding. This approach is professionally sound because it embeds compliance considerations at every stage of the optimization lifecycle. Specifically, it aligns with MAS notices and guidelines that mandate robust internal controls and risk management frameworks. By involving compliance and risk teams early, OCBC demonstrates a commitment to proactive risk mitigation and adherence to regulatory expectations for maintaining effective AML/CTF systems. This ensures that any changes are vetted for their potential to create new risks or exacerbate existing ones, thereby safeguarding the bank's regulatory standing. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a comprehensive compliance review would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for regulatory obligations, potentially leading to breaches of MAS notices on prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing. Such an approach risks creating loopholes in transaction monitoring, customer due diligence (CDD), or suspicious transaction reporting (STR) processes, which are fundamental to AML/CTF compliance. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough testing of the optimized process's impact on compliance controls is also professionally flawed. This haste could result in the deployment of a flawed process that inadvertently bypasses critical compliance checks, such as inadequate screening of high-risk customers or insufficient data capture for transaction monitoring. This directly contravenes the MAS's expectation of well-tested and reliable control mechanisms. Finally, an approach that delegates the entire optimization process to an IT department without adequate input from compliance and business units is professionally unsound. This siloed approach fails to recognize that process optimization in a regulated environment is a cross-functional responsibility. It risks overlooking critical business requirements and compliance nuances that are best understood by those directly involved in customer interactions and regulatory reporting, leading to a suboptimal and potentially non-compliant outcome. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk-based approach. This begins with clearly defining the objectives of the process optimization. Subsequently, a comprehensive impact assessment must be conducted, specifically evaluating how the proposed changes might affect existing compliance controls, data integrity, and regulatory reporting obligations. Engaging all relevant stakeholders, including compliance, risk management, legal, and the business units directly impacted, is crucial for a holistic understanding of potential risks and benefits. Any proposed changes should then be subjected to a formal review and approval process by the compliance and risk functions before implementation. Post-implementation, continuous monitoring and regular audits are essential to ensure the optimized process remains effective and compliant with evolving regulatory requirements. Question 15. Compliance review shows that OCBC's current customer complaint handling process is experiencing significant delays, impacting customer satisfaction and potentially increasing operational risk. To address this, a proposal has been made to implement a new automated system that will triage and respond to a majority of common inquiries, thereby reducing the need for manual intervention. However, the proposed system's data retention capabilities are less robust than the current manual system, and its ability to flag complex or sensitive cases for immediate escalation to senior management is still under development. Considering the regulatory framework applicable to OCBC, which of the following approaches to process optimization is most appropriate? Option A. Prioritize the automation of customer inquiry responses, as this is the most visible aspect of the complaint process, and address data retention and escalation issues only if they become a direct cause of regulatory action. Option B. Implement the automated system immediately to address the delays, with a plan to enhance data retention and escalation features in a later phase. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the existing complaint handling process to identify specific bottlenecks and inefficiencies, then design and implement targeted improvements that integrate with existing compliance systems, ensuring all regulatory requirements for data handling and escalation are met from the outset. Option D. Outsource the entire complaint handling process to a third-party vendor that specializes in automated solutions, assuming they will manage all regulatory compliance aspects. The correct answer is B. Implement the automated system immediately to address the delays, with a plan to enhance data retention and escalation features in a later phase. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because OCBC, like any financial institution, operates under strict regulatory scrutiny. Process optimization, while beneficial for efficiency and cost-effectiveness, must never compromise compliance with banking regulations, customer data privacy, or ethical conduct. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for improvement with the non-negotiable requirements of the regulatory framework. Careful judgment is required to identify optimization strategies that are both effective and compliant. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing changes that are demonstrably aligned with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, guidelines and OCBC's internal policies. This approach prioritizes understanding the current state, assessing the impact of proposed changes on compliance and risk, and ensuring that any optimization does not lead to a reduction in the quality of service or a breach of customer trust. Specifically, this involves mapping out workflows, identifying areas where manual intervention can be reduced through automation, and ensuring that any new technology or process adheres to MAS Notice 626 on technology risk management and MAS Notice 1003 on outsourcing. The ethical justification stems from the bank's fiduciary duty to its customers and the need to maintain public confidence in the financial system. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory implications would be professionally unacceptable. For instance, automating customer onboarding without ensuring that the automated system fully captures all necessary Know Your Customer (KIC) information as stipulated by MAS Notice 626 would lead to regulatory breaches and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to streamline internal reporting by reducing the frequency or depth of data collection without assessing if this still meets the supervisory requirements of MAS. This could result in the bank being unable to provide accurate and timely information to regulators, leading to penalties. A third incorrect approach might involve outsourcing a critical function to a vendor without conducting adequate due diligence on the vendor's compliance and security protocols, violating MAS Notice 1003 on outsourcing. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape relevant to the process being optimized. This should be followed by a risk assessment of any proposed changes, evaluating potential impacts on compliance, data security, customer experience, and operational integrity. Collaboration with compliance and legal departments is crucial throughout the optimization process to ensure that all proposed changes are vetted against regulatory requirements and ethical standards. Continuous monitoring and review of optimized processes are also essential to adapt to evolving regulations and business needs. Question 16. Compliance review shows that OCBC's customer onboarding process has been identified as a candidate for significant efficiency improvements. A proposed optimization initiative aims to streamline data collection and verification steps to reduce processing time. Which of the following approaches best balances the pursuit of operational efficiency with the absolute requirement to adhere to Singapore's regulatory framework, including MAS guidelines and the PDPA? Option A. Implement the proposed changes immediately to capture efficiency gains, with a post-implementation review to identify any potential compliance issues. Option B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of the proposed process changes against all relevant MAS regulations and the PDPA, involving compliance and legal teams to ensure all data privacy, AML, and customer protection requirements are met before implementation. Option C. Focus primarily on reducing the number of data fields collected from customers to speed up the process, assuming that existing verification methods will remain adequate. Option D. Delegate the responsibility for ensuring compliance during the optimization to the IT department, who will implement the changes based on their understanding of system capabilities. The correct answer is A. Implement the proposed changes immediately to capture efficiency gains, with a post-implementation review to identify any potential compliance issues. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because OCBC, like any financial institution, operates under a stringent regulatory environment in Singapore. The challenge lies in balancing the need for operational efficiency through process optimization with the absolute requirement to maintain compliance with the Monetary Authority of Singapore MAS regulations. Misinterpreting or overlooking specific regulatory requirements during process redesign can lead to significant compliance breaches, reputational damage, and financial penalties. Careful judgment is required to ensure that efficiency gains do not compromise customer protection, data privacy, or anti-money laundering, AML, controls. The correct approach involves a proactive and integrated strategy that embeds compliance considerations from the outset of process optimization. This means thoroughly understanding the existing regulatory landscape, identifying potential compliance risks associated with proposed changes, and designing new processes that not only enhance efficiency, but also meet or exceed regulatory standards. This approach is professionally sound because it aligns with the MAS's expectations for robust risk management and adherence to laws such as the Banking Act and the Personal Data Protection Act, PDPA. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible banking and safeguarding customer interests. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without adequate consideration of regulatory implications is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to the implementation of processes that inadvertently weaken AML controls, compromise the confidentiality of customer information, or fail to meet reporting obligations. Such failures would directly contravene MAS directives and could result in severe enforcement actions. Another incorrect approach might be to assume that existing controls are sufficient without a formal review and validation process during optimization. This oversight can lead to a false sense of security, leaving the bank vulnerable to compliance gaps that may only be discovered during an audit or regulatory inspection. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes a comprehensive risk assessment before and during process optimization. This involves engaging compliance and legal teams early, conducting thorough impact analyses of proposed changes on regulatory obligations, and implementing robust testing and validation procedures to ensure that optimized processes are both efficient and compliant. The ultimate goal is to achieve operational excellence without compromising the integrity and trustworthiness of OCBC. Question 17. Compliance review shows that OCBC's customer onboarding process, particularly the Know Your Customer KIC and Customer Due Diligence (CDD) stages, is experiencing significant delays, impacting customer satisfaction and operational efficiency. To address this, the bank is considering several process optimization strategies. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory expectations from the Monetary Authority of Singapore MAS, while improving efficiency? Option A. Prioritizing speed of onboarding above all else, potentially by streamlining verification steps for all customer segments. Option B. Implementing advanced data analytics and artificial intelligence to automate identity verification, risk assessment, and ongoing monitoring, allowing for a more dynamic and efficient CDD process. Option C. Allowing relationship managers to bypass certain standard verification procedures for customers they deem low risk based on their personal judgment. Option D. Reducing the number of mandatory data fields collected during the initial customer onboarding to expedite the process. The correct answer is B. Implementing advanced data analytics and artificial intelligence to automate identity verification, risk assessment, and ongoing monitoring, allowing for a more dynamic and efficient CDD process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing operational efficiency with the stringent regulatory requirements of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, concerning customer due diligence, CDD, and anti-money laundering, AML controls. Bank, as a regulated financial institution, must ensure its processes are robust enough to prevent financial crime, while also being streamlined to serve customers effectively. The tension lies in identifying process improvements that enhance speed and customer experience without compromising the integrity of CDD/AML checks, which are critical for maintaining trust and compliance. The correct approach involves a systematic review and enhancement of the existing CDD process, focusing on leveraging technology and data analytics to automate repetitive tasks, improve risk assessment accuracy, and streamline information verification. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it directly addresses the MAS guidelines on CDD and AML. By integrating advanced analytics and digital tools, Bank can achieve a more efficient and effective CDD framework. This aligns with the MAS's expectations for financial institutions to adopt a risk-based approach, utilizing technology to strengthen controls and reduce the likelihood of financial crime. It demonstrates a commitment to both customer service and regulatory adherence. An incorrect approach that relies solely on reducing the number of data points collected during onboarding would be professionally unacceptable. This would likely lead to a weakened risk assessment, potentially missing red flags, and increasing the bank's exposure to financial crime. Such a shortcut would directly contravene MAS regulations, which mandate comprehensive CDD based on the customer's risk profile. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on speed without considering the accuracy or completeness of information, would also be professionally unsound. While speed is desirable, it cannot come at the expense of thoroughness. Incomplete or inaccurate data compromises the effectiveness of AML/CFT measures and exposes Bank to significant regulatory penalties and reputational damage. This approach fails to uphold the principle of a risk-based approach as mandated by MAS. Finally, an approach that prioritizes customer convenience by bypassing certain verification steps for low-risk customers without a clear, documented, and MAS-approved risk-based justification would be flawed. While tiered CDD is permissible, any deviation from standard procedures must be rigorously assessed, documented, and aligned with regulatory expectations to ensure that the bank's controls remain robust across all customer segments. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the relevant MAS regulations, a comprehensive assessment of the current process's strengths and weaknesses, and the identification of technological or procedural enhancements that can improve efficiency without compromising compliance. This requires cross-functional collaboration between compliance, operations, and technology teams, with a constant focus on maintaining a robust risk-based approach to CDD and AML. Question 18. Compliance review shows that Bank's customer onboarding process has become increasingly inefficient, leading to longer wait times for new account openings. Management is keen to implement rapid process improvements to enhance customer experience and reduce operational costs. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for efficiency with regulatory adherence as per MAS guidelines? Option A. Introduce temporary staff to expedite manual processing of onboarding documents, focusing on clearing the backlog quickly, and address any compliance concerns that arise later. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the existing onboarding workflow, identifying key compliance touchpoints and potential risks, and redesigning the process with integrated regulatory checks and automated controls to ensure adherence to MAS notices on customer due diligence and data security. Option C. Outsource a portion of the onboarding verification process to a third-party vendor without a thorough due diligence assessment of their compliance framework, aiming to reduce internal workload and processing time. Option D. Implement a new digital onboarding platform that automates data capture and verification, prioritizing speed and user-friendliness with a post-implementation review for compliance. The correct answer is D. Implement a new digital onboarding platform that automates data capture and verification, prioritizing speed and user-friendliness with a post-implementation review for compliance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for operational efficiency with the imperative to adhere to strict regulatory requirements and maintain customer trust. The pressure to optimize processes within Bank, while commendable for business growth, must not compromise the integrity of customer data handling or lead to any breaches of the Monetary Authority of Singapore MAS regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that efficiency gains do not inadvertently create new compliance risks. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing workflows, identifying bottlenecks, and implementing improvements that are demonstrably compliant with MAS guidelines on data privacy, security, and customer onboarding. This approach prioritizes a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape and integrates compliance checks at every stage of process optimization. Specifically, it aligns with MAS notices such as Notice 637 on technology risk management, which mandates robust controls for IT systems and data handling, and Notice 626 on prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing, which requires effective customer due diligence processes. By focusing on a compliant and risk-averse optimization, Bank safeguards its reputation and avoids potential penalties. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed and cost reduction without adequate regulatory consideration risks significant ethical and legal failures. For instance, streamlining customer onboarding by reducing the number of verification steps could violate MAS Notice 626, leading to increased risk of facilitating illicit activities and severe reputational damage. Similarly, automating data processing without ensuring data anonymization or secure handling protocols would contravene MAS Notice 637 and data protection principles, exposing the bank to data breaches and regulatory sanctions. Another flawed approach might involve implementing new technologies without a comprehensive risk assessment, potentially introducing vulnerabilities that could be exploited, thereby failing to meet the due diligence expected under MAS regulations. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the relevant regulatory obligations. Before initiating any process optimization, a thorough assessment of potential compliance impacts should be conducted. This involves consulting with the compliance department, legal counsel, and relevant regulatory guidance. The optimization plan should then be designed with compliance as a core objective, not an afterthought. Regular audits and reviews throughout the implementation phase are crucial to ensure that the optimized processes remain compliant and effective. Question 19. The evaluation methodology shows that Bank is seeking to optimize its customer onboarding process. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the bank's commitment to regulatory compliance and operational efficiency in Singapore? Option A. Introducing a streamlined, paper-based application process that significantly reduces the time for manual data input, with a plan to address compliance checks retrospectively. Option B. Implementing a new digital onboarding platform that automates document verification and data entry, ensuring all checks are performed against MAS-approved databases and internal risk assessment frameworks. Option C. Adopting a third-party onboarding solution that offers faster processing, but has not undergone a thorough review for compliance with Singapore's AML/CTF regulations. Option D. Focusing solely on reducing the number of required customer information fields to expedite the process, without a corresponding review of regulatory data requirements. The correct answer is B. Implementing a new digital onboarding platform that automates document verification and data entry, ensuring all checks are performed against MAS-approved databases and internal risk assessment frameworks. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an employee at Bank by requiring them to identify the most effective process optimization approach within the constraints of Singapore's regulatory framework, specifically as it pertains to financial institutions. The challenge lies in balancing efficiency gains with the stringent compliance requirements that govern Bank's operations, ensuring that any optimization does not inadvertently lead to breaches of regulations or compromise customer data security and privacy. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both innovative and compliant. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing workflows, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing changes that streamline operations while adhering strictly to the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, guidelines and relevant banking acts. This includes ensuring that any automation or digitalization efforts maintain data integrity, comply with anti-money laundering, AML and Know Your Customer (KIC) regulations, and uphold customer confidentiality. The regulatory justification stems from the MAS's mandate to maintain financial stability and integrity, which necessitates robust operational processes that are both efficient and compliant. Ethical considerations also demand that efficiency gains do not come at the expense of customer trust or fair treatment. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed and cost reduction without a comprehensive assessment of regulatory implications. For instance, implementing a new system that bypasses established customer verification protocols, even if it speeds up onboarding, would be a significant regulatory failure. This could violate MAS directives on customer due diligence and AML/counter-terrorist financing (CTF) measures, exposing Bank to severe penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to adopt a technology solution that does not adequately protect customer data, thereby contravening the Personal Data Protection Act (PDPA) and MAS guidelines on cybersecurity and data resilience. This would represent an ethical failure in safeguarding sensitive information. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the current process and its objectives. This should be followed by a rigorous assessment of potential optimization strategies against the backdrop of all applicable Singaporean regulations and internal Bank policies. A risk-based approach is crucial, where potential compliance and operational risks are identified, evaluated, and mitigated before implementation. Consultation with legal, compliance, and risk management departments is essential to ensure that proposed changes are fully vetted and aligned with the bank's regulatory obligations and ethical standards. Question 20. Compliance review shows that Bank's customer onboarding process is experiencing significant delays, impacting customer satisfaction and operational efficiency. To address this, the operations team proposes a streamlined approach that involves reducing the number of data verification points and relying more heavily on automated identity checks for all customer segments. What is the most appropriate approach for Bank to consider? Option A. Immediately implement the proposed streamlined approach to reduce onboarding times across all customer segments, as efficiency gains are paramount for competitive advantage. Option B. Focus solely on reducing the number of required documents for customer onboarding, as this is the most direct way to speed up the process and is a common industry practice. Option C. Automate all identity verification steps and remove manual oversight to achieve maximum efficiency, as regulatory bodies are increasingly accepting of technological solutions. Option D. Implement a risk-based approach to process optimization, leveraging technology to enhance efficiency while ensuring that enhanced due diligence measures are applied to higher-risk customer segments, and that all changes are validated against MAS Notice 626 requirements. The correct answer is D. Implement a risk-based approach to process optimization, leveraging technology to enhance efficiency while ensuring that enhanced due diligence measures are applied to high-risk customer segments, and that all changes are validated against MAS Notice 626 requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because Bank, like any financial institution, operates under stringent regulatory requirements designed to ensure market integrity, customer protection, and financial stability. The pressure to optimize processes, while beneficial for efficiency and profitability, must be balanced against these critical compliance obligations. A hasty or poorly considered optimization could inadvertently lead to breaches of regulations, reputational damage, and financial penalties. Careful judgment is required to identify optimization opportunities that enhance efficiency without compromising adherence to the monetary authority of Singapore MAS regulations, specifically those pertaining to customer due diligence (CDD) and anti-money laundering (AML) frameworks. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing processes to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of technology-enabled solutions that automate manual tasks and enhance data accuracy, all while ensuring that these changes do not dilute the effectiveness of CDD and AML controls. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes regulatory compliance as a foundational element of any process improvement. By leveraging technology to augment, rather than replace, critical human oversight and compliance functions. OCBC can achieve process optimization while maintaining robust adherence to MAS Notice 626 on prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing. This ensures that the bank continues to meet its obligations regarding customer identification, transaction monitoring, and suspicious activity reporting. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction by significantly reducing the human element in CDD checks without adequate technological safeguards or risk-based adjustments would be professionally unacceptable. This would likely lead to a failure to identify high-risk customers or transactions, thereby violating MAS Notice 626 requirements for effective CDD and AML measures. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing new software without proper testing and validation of its compliance with existing regulatory reporting requirements would also be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This could result in inaccurate or incomplete reporting to MAS, undermining the integrity of the financial system. Furthermore, an approach that prioritizes speed of onboarding over thorough risk assessment, even if it streamlines customer acquisition, would be a direct contravention of the risk-based approach mandated by MAS, potentially exposing the bank to illicit financial flows. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the relevant regulatory landscape, particularly MAS regulations governing financial institutions. This should be followed by a risk-based assessment of any proposed process changes, evaluating their potential impact on compliance obligations. Collaboration between business units, compliance departments, and technology teams is crucial to ensure that optimization efforts are aligned with regulatory requirements and ethical standards. Continuous monitoring and periodic reviews of implemented processes are also essential to adapt to evolving regulations and emerging risks.